Dr. Swathi, welcome back to Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee. I'm very excited about this show today.
Thank you so much for having me again. I always look forward to chatting with you, especially now that we're doing this documentary series. We've picked such good ones so far, and this one is very much like the others in that way.
I agree. So without further ado, I would love to hear your insight on this documentary. We watched the Minimalism documentary on Netflix. It was very convicting for me. So I would love to hear your takeaway on this.
I feel like for me, this is something that a documentary I've come back to many times in my life at this point. I think at this point, I've probably seen it 3 times, and
Wow.
every time it still impacts me in the same way. And I still get excited about it. And I still walk away being like, wow, it's almost a good reminder for me to reset. And especially, having recently moved, it's like, oh, we need to furnish the place. Granted, it's, an apartment, it's not like super large. We don't have a lot of space, but, moving to a different country, it's like, wow, we didn't bring really anything with us. So it's something to, really think about, is like, what do you actually really need versus what do you think society is telling you that you need versus like, is it keeping up with the Joneses? Like, why do we need to keep up with the Joneses? And, that was such a mentality decades ago, with the rise of suburbanism, but that's not really, where we live right now. So for me, it's always a great like reset. And it's also a wonderful thing to discuss with someone. I feel like I've had a few friends here and there, which we've been able to sit down and have a great conversation about it. But at the end of the day, like, not on this type of platform in a way that's going to be shared with other people. So that is also, makes me really excited that maybe if people haven't watched the documentary yet, this could be an opportunity for them to engage and watch it. And also, we keep mentioning, yes, it's a documentary, but it's only 50 minutes. Including credits before and after. So it's more like 45 minutes. So it's not like some big thing where you need to sit down and devote a whole, night to or something. It's really, I think, the perfect amount of time to delve into the stories behind the men who've kind of started this, and maybe not started the revolution necessarily, but they've popularized the revolution, and, get a little bit behind their story and then see how it can relate to yours. And I think, like, yes, even though the documentary is only 45 minutes and it's easy to watch in terms of, it's only a short period of time, I think that they do that very intentionally, because you still afterwards need to sit down and think about what that means for you and what that means for your life and how you can take those first steps to implement it. And I also really like that about this documentary too, is that it's not like, oh, go get rid of everything tomorrow. It's start with one thing the first day, start with 2 things the next day. So, and anyways, there's so many things I could say about it, but I'm really happy to be here to talk a little more and also hear your perspective on it too.
Yeah. I watching it through, and I watched it a couple of times through, really, it got me thinking. There was a part in there where they're talking about people who will go through and start to pare things down and get rid of things and that we don't really need. Like you just mentioned, you moved into a new apartment, and your first reaction really is to, oh, I need to fill this up. I need to move all this stuff in. And when you sit in a wide open space, it feels so free. Right. And so we get to this point where we're like, I'm just going to get rid of stuff. And we start clearing out. And a year later, we find that the space is full again. What is it in us that is causing us to clear things out? I can remember years ago, whenever I would go to visit my mom and dad, we would get up early on Saturday morning, and my mom, her sister, my cousins, we would all spend the entire morning till about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon yard sailing. And then I would drive home to New York. So it was 3 hours away. I'd drive home and my car would be full of things that I got at the yard sales that I absolutely needed. And at one point, my husband and I were like, we're decluttering. And I looked in the 2-bay garage of all the stuff that I was putting out for a yard sale. And it was all stuff I had bought at yard sales.
Wow.
it was really eye-opening to me. Like, what in the moment made me think I need to have this stuff just to clear this stuff out? And I'm in the same spot again where I am hauling things away. It's just why, Dr. Swathi, do we still feel like we have to keep up with these elusive Joneses? I don't even know who they are.
I know exactly. And it's, I mean, so much of what they talk about too, which I think is really interesting, especially, you know, as a business owner myself, is marketing. And,
Yes.
you know, like marketing is there to convince us to purchase things. Sorry about that. Just dropped my hairbrush. I don't know if you can hear it. But yeah, so marketing is here to like make us convince us that we need certain things that we don't really need, especially like, you know, we don't need a fourth black t-shirt. We just don't, right? And not to say I own a clothing company, but they're just like giving an example that, you know, like there are so many companies out there that are like, oh, this is the best one. This is the perfect one. This is the one you actually need.
Yeah.
And all the other ones you have. And actually very interesting too. And this is like something that I've learned recently, especially like thinking about marketing strategies, is like, so many of the marketing strategies out there right now, which is so fascinating to think about. But again, as consumers, we don't think about it until you actually are put in this position where you're actually needing to make decisions on how you want to talk to your current or future consumer. Is so much of the marketing right now is, you know, saying that what you're doing right now is not good enough, and what you have is not good enough, and how you're behaving is not, you know, not the best. And so maybe if you incorporate what we have, you can feel, you know, you can feel better, because right now what you are is like not good enough. And it's very interesting to think about. I mean, when you see like a you know, a sneaker ad, we're not thinking about like, oh, it's because I'm not good enough, but like that's the marketing aspect of it, is making you think like, oh, what you have is actually not good enough, so you actually need to go purchase this really new, you know, looking style of shoe that you don't own, because it's going to make you feel as cool as the people on this TV ad.
Yes. Yes. And that just really triggered me. Was you were talking about bringing up shoes, I was thinking of my shoe rack. And why did I feel I needed sneakers in 5 different colors and sandals in 8 different colors? And do I really need, I mean, just going through what I have, and in, you know, when I was a kid growing up, every fall, my mom took us all school shopping. And so my mind is still every fall or at the end of the summer, I think, oh, I need to go shopping for new clothes now. And when my mom was still living, I mentioned something to her and she said, honey, I took you school shopping every year because you either wore everything out or you outgrew everything.
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore. I don't need new clothes every fall. I don't. I like what I have. And when I get to fall, it all feels new anyway, because I haven't worn it all summer, right?
Right.
But still marketing is, oh, it's Labor Day, so you better get out there and get shopping because you can't wear what you wore last year. It's right. And then my closet is so full, I can't walk into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. And I feel like right now, like the way that I'm kind of taking minimalism and consumerism, like the way that I'm kind of internalizing it for myself right now, is I'm really thinking about it from, you know, like from a fashion perspective, from a capsule wardrobe perspective. And it's really something interesting that I like kind of decided, and I realized, I think during the lockdown, honestly, was, wow, I really don't need that many clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, certain times, like when you go out, like I'm not going out with the same group of friends every single time. Like, what is so wrong with wearing the same thing multiple times, right?
Right.
That was something that I realized during at that point. And I feel like I've almost had a renaissance of that recently for 2 reasons. One sounds like really ridiculous, and then the other one I think is founded in something real. But well, I mean, one of them was, you know, I've lived in so many apartments in different places in my life that honestly, like I'm being very transparent on the podcast, like the last time I had a like actual washer dryer in my own apartment was when I was 18 living with my parents. So, for years, like decades, I was living in different apartments, of course, that I didn't own or anything, that didn't have a washer dryer in unit. And so now coming to this new apartment and realizing, wait, if I wear something today, I could wash it tonight and I could wear it tomorrow, has also been this like incredible renaissance for me to be like, wow, I really need even less than what I thought I needed. Because after the lockdown, I did this huge closet blowout. And at that point, like right after the lockdown, we had moved. It sounds like I move a lot, but I promise I don't. But we had just moved again. And at that point, and I was like, you know what? All these things in the lockdown that I didn't really think I needed. And honestly, I forgot that I owned. And I feel like that's a big thing they talked about in the documentary as well, is like, if you forget you own it, chances are you're not that excited or passionate about it. And you maybe don't need it if you forgot that you own it. And so that happened to me during the lockdown. And so when we moved to the next place, I like almost donated like 50% of my wardrobe at that point. And then making this other new move now, like since we moved to this new place almost 6 months ago, I can count the number of things on like one hand that I've purchased to add to my wardrobe, because now it's like, oh, before I thought I needed like 8 or 10 workout outfits. I really only need 3 because then I can just do laundry again.
Yes.
So it's a very like privileged place to be. And I feel very privileged to say that, yes, I can do laundry in my own apartment and therefore I don't need to buy as many clothes, but it's such a mind shift. And it really reminded me, the lockdown for me, and the way that it like manifested, it reminded me rewatching the documentary a few days ago, when that guy pretended, one of the main, minimalism kind of gurus of the documentary, he pretended like he was moving and he packed up all his stuff. And in all that, in all the stuff, he labeled everything, of course. So he decided that in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, he was just going to live out of these boxes and see what he actually opened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it felt like for me in lockdown. It felt like everything was in metaphorical boxes.
Yeah.
And it was like, what did I actually need and what did I actually use?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely love that idea. I've actually run it by my husband and said, let's do that, because we do want to move in the next year or two. We do want to do a major move. And I'm looking around, our house is huge and every corner has something in it. And like, I don't want to take all this stuff with me. There in no scenario do I see myself packing up everything. Why do I need an entire home gym when we end up going out to the gym most of the time anyway? Literally, the treadmill has been folded up and pushed against a wall for months. I haven't even taken it out. I had to have a Peloton. I've probably been on it 4 times because I like taking spin classes surrounded by people. So it's been a real huge shift in mindset. And we just got back from a vacation and we stayed in a timeshare condo. And we've done this multiple times. And every single time I am struck by how little I need to make great meals or get by in the week or 2 that we're there with the clothes that we have. And this time we had a washer and dryer in the unit and we were laughing as we were packing our suitcases to come home because we touched 3 outfits and we each took 15 outfits. We just kept doing laundry. We did dishes each night or even multiple times during the day. There was, like one size of each pot, one frying pan, one baking dish. And I made amazing meals with this little tiny kitchen with these few things that I had. And I felt free. I felt like we had this expansive room, a bedroom that had a dresser. We actually shared a dresser for the entire week, and I just remember looking at it and saying, we have way too much stuff. And like you just said, it's a very privileged place. And I do very, very much understand that. And so when I look around our house, I think there are so many people who could use all of this extra. who really need all of this extra. And I don't. We don't. We don't need it all. And all it does is collect dust. And then I look around and I feel like, even when I'm putting my makeup on, I'll open up a drawer. Who needs 25 tubes of lipstick? Seriously. I
Right.
use the same one every
Use the
day.
same one.
The same.
I have one. I mean, it's actually like nearly almost gone because I only use this one.
Yes. Growing up, my mother had one tube of lipstick because that was the color she loved. And she would just get to the bottom and go to Avon and reorder
Yes.
her lipstick. And so I don't know really where I learned this. I have a library 10 blocks away from the house, but I could start my own library. Why? Why did I feel the need? And most of everything on my shelf, this struck me this morning too, as I was thinking about coming on and talking about this with you. Almost, I would say at least 60 to 75% of the books I own are because someone talked about a book and I thought I had to have it. Have it, not go to the library and check it out or borrow it. I had to have it, own it. And I do love books, but I don't touch most of the ones on my shelf. And there's somebody else that could be reading them. It doesn't make sense to me to hold on to all of these things.
It's something that I think they also touched on in the documentary too, is that like this sentimental value. And one of the host I mentioned about the boxes, the other host, I wish I had written down their names, but the other host was talking about how like one of his parents had passed away and he realized like how many mementos she had kept over the years, but realized that like the memories were what was like the most important. And that was like a big eye-opening experience for me too, to realize like I still have all the memories. And like I think my equivalent now, instead of keeping the mementos, is like keeping photos on an iCloud somewhere that I can always look back to, and things like that. And every so often they'll, I'll sit down and I'll look at a bunch of old photos and I'll send them to people and be like, oh, remember this and 2009 and all of that. So I think it's like reframing, how we think of memories, and that memories don't need to necessarily have like a tangible, version of them, and they can just, live in our mind and, I guess potentially live in our phone, instead of having them live, somewhere like that we can touch. So that's something to consider. And then with the book thing, I also used to be the same way. Whereas, I wasn't a big reader, like for very many years, especially going through school. I was not a big reader, but I started getting into reading again and wanted to own all of these books. And I realized, and actually my partner was the one who said like, his rule is that he loves to read. He's always loved to read, but his rule is that, if he has a book and he's finished reading it, then he likes to gift it to someone so that they can experience that just like he did, kind of a thing. And I mean, a lot of things I've learned from him, but that's definitely one of the things where I was like, wow, that's such a great way to think about it. It's like, you had this experience, but that doesn't mean like it needs to be just limited to you. Like you should share the experience with someone else.
Yes. And I love that he did that. That is something that I have started doing as I finish a book. If I'm quite sure I'm never reading it again, I will pass it on. There are just a handful that I've gotten done and thought I will probably read this one again. But at the same time, I could go and check it out in the library.
Right. Yes.
My daughter is an avid reader, a voracious reader, but she utilizes the library and has always loved it. When my kids were little, I had them at the library all the time.
Yeah, that's what I did growing up too. Yeah.
I mean, my mom loved to read, but she took me to the library and I used to sit in there for hours surrounded by books. Why I now bring them into my house. It's getting all that. This is the documentary. I know I have not finished a sentence in the last 4 sentences I did. So watching the documentary really, really helped me realize that there's more to this than just all my bookshelves. There is a reason why. And it got me thinking and digging deep into myself of why I felt I needed to have not just books, but why did I feel I needed to have yet another mug? Because the saying was cute. I could have written the saying down and had it in my phone. I didn't need to have an actual another mug. Now this one was yellow, so I probably did need it, but but when I came home, when you look at all the mugs and I started pulling them all out again to get rid of, and it's not the first time I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
So it really was digging deep into what is it? There is something deeper. It's not about the stuff. It's about the reason why.
Yeah,
It's why we have the stuff.
absolutely. And one of the things that really, it was kind of like the culmination of the documentary that I always come back to is like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not the things that make us happy, it's the people and it's the experiences and what is the real reason that we get out of bed in the morning, that we get excited about things. It's the experiences that we're going to have, the impact that we want to have on the world, the people that we want to spend our time with. It's not necessarily like we don't jump out of bed excited to like go buy something or go wear something. I mean, that might be the case some days, but not, that's not like the prime reason why we're waking up and doing something.
Yes. Yes. And I can remember having my nieces here one time, and I opened up a drawer that was full of Sharpie markers. And I said, girls, you're going to need to go through these and take what you want. And they immediately dumped the drawers into a box and started counting them. And there was something like 235 markers in there.
Wow.
Right. And they said, how many can we have? And I said, how many do you want? And they said, all of them. And I said, then I would love for you to take all of them. They both took them and divided them between all of their classmates, and everybody was happy. And it made me happy because I didn't need all those. This is like something about a Sharpie marker, and they have those packs every fall that are limited collection. And I was like,
Of course.
I better, right? Marketing. I better jump on that now. So I got rid of them all. And then I realized the other day, I have started to amass these markers again. So getting rid of it, I guess my point, no, I know my point is clearing the space is not the full issue. It is getting deeper into why we filled it in the first place and dealing with that issue or that experience. And what is it about Sharpie markers? Like I started really digging deep. Why is it that I love these so much? And it really when I dug deep into it, it was something that my mom and dad would every year buy me new Sharpie markers for school. And then my mom and dad and I would do crafts together with them. So it's not so much a Sharpie marker that I'm trying to relive. It's trying to tap into that tangible memory with both when I've lost both of my mom and dad. And it's like, I think a Sharpie marker or a pile of Sharpie markers. I actually had a tree that you would sit the markers in on my desk. And seriously, it was a very bad obsession. And I mean, I guess there could be worse, but the whole process behind it was me trying to create something that it can't be anymore. That part of my life cannot be recreated with a Sharpie marker, but all the memories are there. And holding on to those memories does not need to have 200 Sharpie markers. It was a huge revelation to me on being able to clear space and then not fill it up again.
I mean, that's incredible. And it's so important that everyone take this moment and think about, and it's also, it's maybe Sharpie markers for you, but what about, for someone else? It also makes me think like when people collect things, like what is the reason behind someone wanting to collect a certain item? They might think it looks cute, like collecting could be mugs, it could be, like purses, it could be a lot of different things. It could be little figurines, but what is it about that certain item and why is it that you're drawn to it and you feel like you want to have multiple of them, I think is something that is really important, and something that you've already started to unpack for yourself. But something that, you know, I think about all the time. It's like, you know, if I do have one or two of these, like, do I really need another one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is something to really think about. I mean, I'm just kind of looking around my office now. I still have, my dad was a trombonist, and I have mutes that he would use in his trombone. You know,
Wow.
I still have them. And the thing is, my husband said the other day, he goes, "How long are you going to keep those?" And I said, "You know, the thing is, there is probably a young child learning to play who his parents can't afford to buy them. It is time to let them go. They are doing no one any good. I can't use them. I'll never use them. I don't play the trombone." You know, and I gave away the trombones to local kids like in our church who were learning trombone. I gave those away, but I kept the mutes. Some things just don't make sense. And there are multiple things like that in my house. So it is that sentimental part that is hard for some of us to go through. And it's me and my husband. So we have had so many people in our lives now as we get older that have already transitioned.
Mhm.
And the physical things that they had kind of got passed to us.
Oh.
Maybe, right? Because maybe, oh, well, Gabe and Carrie will take it. Gabe and Carrie will take it. And we did. And then you get to the point where you're looking around thinking, I just need some space.
Mhm.
I just need some space. And our daughter and grandson recently moved out. And so we have 2 empty bedrooms. I mean, other than a bed in one of the rooms and a dresser in another one. And my husband was like, "Well, so do you want to do?" And he started naming some things. I said, "You know what? I just want to leave them empty right now.
Yeah.
I just want a room where we can just walk in. And right now it's possibility and it's empty. And I kind of like to just leave them like that
Yeah.
for a while. Just they're calm rooms to walk in at
Yeah.
this point for me."
Exactly. And it's almost a test too. Like
Mhm.
when we're so used to seeing an empty space and wanting to fill it, it's like, what if we tried to challenge ourselves to not fill it?
To not fill it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And to fill it with, you know, feeling and emotion and
Yeah.
expansiveness and something like that, rather than something actual, you know, actually that does quote unquote fill up space.
Yes.
Mhm.
And why, really taking some time to dig into why do we feel the need to fill up the space? Why do we, I mean, you mentioned earlier about workout clothes, and I am a member of 2 sites where every month you can either skip or they'll give you a credit, and then you can take your points and get yet another workout outfit. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And I probably at this point have 25 or 30 pairs of workout leggings,
Mhm.
and I wear the same 3 pairs all the time. All the time. So
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, while you were saying that, I was thinking, I'm going to go in and cancel the memberships. And I
Mhm.
don't have to remember to cancel them. And then I don't have to feel like I should use the points because I paid for them. I
Right.
don't need a thing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And that's been
Nothing.
a huge thing for me too. And I think that, like, it's so much about, as you've mentioned before too, it's like about the Sharpies. It's like the way that you grow up and you don't realize how that influences some of your behavior now. But you know, I grew up and my parents were always looking at like the best deal. So to them, they're like, you know, and they didn't come for much. So to them,
Mhm.
you know, if they saw a deal of like, oh, you get 2 leggings for the price of one, you should get that one.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, both of them might fall apart after, you know, the 3rd use and like the 3rd launder, but you know, at least you got 2 for 1 kind of a thing.
Yes.
Was the mentality. Whereas I've kind of had to shift that from like what I call now like a quantity to quality. type of mentality where, you know, I might only buy 3 and I only have 3 pairs of leggings right now that I used to work out. And, you know, they're all really high quality and I've worn them probably once a week the past like 6 months since we moved. I sold a lot of the other ones, or I donated the others, and you know, I just kept those 3 that either didn't sell or I decided I should keep a few to use. And it's been like really great to think about, okay, if I am going to, you know, spend my money, if I am going to go in and make this purchase, like either I know that I can donate it after, I could sell it after, or if I only have a few, then I really am going to get my quote unquote money's worth. So
Yes.
like that's also like a big mind shift too, that I think that, you know, is like a part of, they even mentioned in the documentary, it's a part of the American dream to be able to buy things and to be able to buy as many things as you want and to fill up your space and all of those things. And I think that that's kind of the generation where my parents were, is that you know, to them it honestly was the American dream. Whereas, you know, now I'm in the next generation after that is like, I don't need that many things. I just need like the things that I really want, the things that, you know, when I can't wear them all winter, I'm thinking about them because I'm so excited for summer to wear them. Like that's, you know, what I want to look forward to and have these pieces that I keep returning to, or have like one purse that I'm looking at right now that I wear every single day. And that's just, you know, it's neutral, goes with everything. And it's such a different way of thinking about it. And even, you know, like, you know, going back to, you know, when kids are growing, like every season we would go and buy 1 or 2 new items to wear. And, you know, for our wardrobes in elementary school and even into high school and things like that. And shopping was like a fun thing to do that I like looked forward to. And like, I never really thought about what it really means, like also for the environment. And it's like, do we really need to like have more things? And, you know, if consumers are demanding more things, then the, you know, manufacturers are creating more things. But then I think a big thing, and I've like been listening to a lot of, you know, podcasts on sustainability and circularity and all of that. And that really feeds into this idea of minimalism for today's topic, that, you know, it really, like, we lose sight as a consumer of all the different processes that it takes for an item to get, you know, in a store in front of us. And, you know, whether it's fast fashion, whether it's, you know, like something in a department store, whether it's, you know, high end, it doesn't matter like what the product is at the end of the day, but we need to remember the process that it took, who were the people that worked on it, and, you know, what sort of environmental impact is it really having? And I think that that's so easy to lose sight of when you just walk into a mall and see a bunch of things and you're like, okay, I want one of all of these, but maybe using certain fabrics or certain, you know, certain actual like processing, like manufacturing steps are really not good for the environment, whether we're talking about like carbon emissions or anything of the like, or even like, you know, fair labor as well. So it's, there's so many more factors to it that I think that Minimalism, the documentary, is a great stepping stone into piquing interest, but there's so much more to learn, and we as consumers need to be more educated on all of these things.
Yes. I love that you brought that point up. And I don't even know why this popped into my head, but every year, so end of the summer, as parents, you get a list of school supplies that your kids need. And I can remember one year my mom saying to us when we were kids, you know, she was going around the house, getting our scissors together from the last year and crayon boxes that maybe had one crayon missing or something like that. And she was getting these things together. And I was like, aren't we getting new? And she said, we don't always need to have brand new. You still have, these scissors work fine. These crayons are fine. This glue is still perfectly usable. And it was such a lesson to me that with my own kids, those school supplies, we would go through and find out what was still good. Did things truly need to be replaced? And that just goes with what you just said. I just had never really thought through the entire process of bringing new in, and where are the old going? Into a landfill? And then they're just sitting there, maybe just getting buried deeper and deeper and deeper. And what is that doing to our soil? What is that doing to where we're growing food? What is leaching into the ground and coming out into our water sources? And what is happening to all these things that we're just putting in the trash can?
Right.
You know, it is something to really think about. I highly, highly recommend this documentary. It got me thinking, really thinking, and scheduling time in my calendar every single day to put something in a box that is going to the thrift store, to a local women's shelter. I have multiple boxes based on where I think it needs to go. And it also has, right, got me thinking, when I do a vendor table at women's events, am I adding to the problem? Do I have my journals and everything there? Is this something people really need? Or are they going to buy it simply because I spoke and then they want one of my journals, when, like, if they're like me, they've got a dresser full of empty journals.
Mm.
Why did I need yet another one? So am I adding to the problem? It has really gotten me thinking about, do I really need to have these physical products that I'm putting out there? Am I adding to a problem that is already there? When, like, the first chapter of my book is clearing space. The first chapter of my book is all about decluttering your physical space and your emotional space. And by the way, here's another journal you should buy. It just really got me thinking on, oh my gosh, am I really bringing into the world what is needed, or am I adding to an existing problem?
I mean, it's definitely something to think about, but I also think about, like, a recent podcast that I heard. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the guy's name, which is so horrible, but praise whoever, the person is. And maybe we can put that in the caption, notes as well, like after, if I remember the person's name is. But yeah, so I recently heard a podcast, and he was saying, like, he is an owner of a company. So it's been like 6 months since I've heard it, but it's like stuck with me, which is why I can't remember the person's name. But anyways, so he said that, like, the whole point of having a company and growing a company, and really at the end of the day, like, why he decided to do what he's doing right now is because he knew that it was making an impact to improve people's lives. That was like the main phrase that he said multiple times, was he wanted to improve people's lives. Yes. And so I think that's a way for you to frame, whether or not you should have physical products, is like, is this journal going to improve someone's life? At the end of the day, if they make the conscious decision, first of all, every purchase should be conscious, but if they make that decision to buy your journal, in my mind, it's, you are providing the option for them to improve their life. And if they have a stack of 12 journals and they're purchasing yours, maybe they'll actually use yours.
Maybe.
So, I mean, it's not, I think the idea of minimalism too, especially the way they talk about it in the documentary, is like, it's not necessarily getting rid of everything. It's like keeping what really matters. And I think that if your product, or that's the way I think of, even my company as well, is like, if we're out here trying to improve people's lives, then to me, it's worth having a product.
Yes. I agree. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, if you do remember that podcast, I will link it in the show notes. But if it's your podcast and you're listening, let us know so we can add your name to the show notes. This has been amazing, Dr. Swathi. I could talk about this all day, but we should probably leave some time for people now to go and look around their physical environment and think of things that you really are okay saying, I'd like to bless somebody else with this now.
Yes.
It's time to let it go. This has been amazing. This has been awesome. All right. So let's hear your version of your Pow Pow shoes today.
And this is actually a newer thing for me, is I realized, like, especially like moving somewhere a bit colder, that, in the winter, I'm less pumped to go outside and get my steps in. So more than ever recently has been, my really comfortable sneakers.
I love it.
That can help me achieve, I'm not looking at the number every day, but it's more of just the act of like, okay, I want to go out and ensure I'm moving. And so I always, of course, make an effort to work out. But I mean, if you think of like the amount of hours you're awake and only working out for 30 minutes of like a 16-hour day is not a lot of movement. So I'm trying to make a conscious effort to take some calls when I'm walking, or like even going down to the gym if it's cold out, to ensure that I'm still walking to some capacity and just getting some movement in. Maybe it's even meal prep on a Sunday, but like I'm moving more than I was before. So that entire long-winded answer is to say right now it is my sneakers, and I'm very, very excited about wearing my minimalism perspective sneakers, where I have like one white pair and one black pair, and depending on my outfit, that's what I go with.
I absolutely love that. I just filled a box with about 6 pairs of sneakers and kept 2, a high top pair and a regular pair, and they are on my feet all the time. Like you, I love that we're so in sync. If I have sneakers on my feet, I will move more. If I have slippers on my feet, I will sit more.
Yes.
So I've made it a point to start putting sneakers on my feet all the time.
I love that idea for like having an at-home pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
Because I don't wear shoes in the house. Here and there, I'll wear slippers if it's cold, but like I don't wear shoes in the house. But maybe that is a worthy investment of having a pair of comfortable shoes only for the house, and that are not allowed to be worn outside.
Yes.
Okay.
I do. I do have that. I do have indoor sneakers and outdoor sneakers, because we don't wear shoes around the house either that we've worn outside. So I do have a pair, but I just found when I had slippers on my feet all the time, I did not get up and move much, because I guess it's just my mindset. If my feet are in slippers, my feet should be up. But if
So I
my feet
heard
are
this
in
on
sneakers,
another podcast a few weeks ago. Can I remember the name? No, but okay, well, and I'm also trying to explore new different podcasts, because I've been so like tied to a few that I'm trying to explore more.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I heard that there was a study that came out recently that talked about like one of the things that I love to do to change up my environment is I do have an at-home office. Like we have a 2-bedroom and I use one of them for my office, but sometimes I want a change of pace. So one day a week, I go to a coffee shop and I work when I don't have calls, when I time block for only certain like nose down work. But I realized that even if after, I start getting hungry at the coffee shop, okay, maybe it's time to come home, I take my sneakers off and all of a sudden I'm not as productive at home. So this study came out almost like in due time of me having this realization that if you come back and keep your outdoor shoes on, or like your, sneakers, like maybe if I change to indoor sneakers, and I keep them on, apparently it's supposed to keep you in that mindset of like being outdoors, being productive, getting things done. Or even if it's like wearing, like nice boots or like loafers or something in the house, apparently it's supposed to like ignite something in your brain that is like, oh, wow, like reminder, like when you wear these, this is what you do. You go out and have a meeting, you go out and work. So we're getting very off topic, but I feel like that is, that's like something I've been like wanting to experiment with at home.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to me. Perfect sense. I know if I wear non-stretchy sweatpants, if I wear regular pants, I'm much more productive. But sweatpants all day and slippers, well, it must be a day off, is just the way where my brain goes. So I will get dressed every day, even though my commute to work is from the 3rd floor to the basement. That's my whole commute. And I just find myself more willing to get up and move. So something to that. There is definitely something to that. Highly recommend the indoor sneakers. I've had a pair for a while. They last a long time because they're not my regular workout shoes, but it's very effective.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
So following this topic of conversation and all of the whole podcast, then what is a journal prompt you could give us?
Okay, so a journal prompt I would give is On the topic of minimalism, what really matters to you?
I
And
love that.
if you were to go through your whole day, like what are the things that, are non-negotiables, and what are the things, whether it's people, activities, like making a morning cup of coffee, whatever it may be, what are those things that really excite you that, would fit within this minimalist framework of like, these are the few things that I really need to make me feel like the best version of myself every day.
I love it. I love it. And where can we find you? And I'm going to link all of this in our show notes.
Yeah, so you can find my brand Element Apothic. I can give you the link to that,
Yes.
as well as our Instagram, which has been doing really well recently. So we're very excited about that. So yeah, so I'm happy to share more information about that. And then for me, my website is drswathi.com, DOCTORSWATHI. And then I also have an Instagram with the same handle that I don't update as often as I maybe should, but it's there.
I will lead everyone to these amazing places. You are fabulous. I love having you on the show. I love your insight. I love just chatting with you. I feel like we're in the same room, especially with both of us with our bricks today.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. You are fabulous. I can't wait till the next one. And I don't even know which documentary we're watching next, but I know it's going to be a fabulous conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.